Welcome back, everybody, to the Weird and Strong podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy. I'm so happy that you're here. Today, we get to talk with one of my favorite people in the world, Mr. Erick Roder. We get to explore his background, all the weird things that he's done, and the awesome things that he's bringing into the world. So with that, let's get weird. All right, welcome with my great friend, Erick Roder. How are you doing today, man?
I mean, it's February. Everything is closed. It's a blizzard, but I can work remote, so I'm fine. There's heaters. I'm fine.
Yeah, that's the great part of living in the great upper Midwest of the United States. We have real winter, folks.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who are listening in southern climates, it's not just a little bit of rain. It's full on cold. We had the big swing yesterday. Wasn't it like 40 degrees, and then now it's like 4?
That's the difference between us and basically most of the places I've ever. There's not a lot of, by tomorrow there'll be a 50-degree swing.
Yeah.
That's enough to make your brain hurt. And that's where we live.
Yeah, I feel like there was a moment yesterday where it's like, I feel like I'm getting used to this idea of spring and like normal weather. And then Mother Nature just smacks you in the face and says, just kidding.
No, I don't understand how ancestral, why did great grandpa stop here?
Picked this place. Like what time of the year did he decide that this was the place?
This is the place, guys. And then you build a place like, oh, we're boned. This was a mistake.
Well, yeah, I mean, you get around this area, let's say June, early September, you're like, oh, it's beautiful and amazing, very nice and mild, and then it all turns on you.
No, and I just, it's the stubborn German, this is where we live. Mm-hmm. This is how we're gonna. I'm assuming what my grandpa did.
Likewise with my family as well. So starting off, we'll get into the weird question.
Yeah.
We're gonna do a would you rather today because I like would you rathers.
All
good would you rather is one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
Would you rather every time you heard music it was silence, or it was the heat is on? Those are the only two things you can pick. It's either silence or the heat is on. Repeat. Every time music plays.
Yes.
Exactly.
That's the only song I hear. Or nothing. I'm taking the heat is on, man. Glenn Fry. Oh, yeah, that is a righteous jam. And I would take righteous jam over nothing on repeat. That's
Could you imagine that too, though? It adapts to the style. So you're hearing a mariachi version. You're hearing a ska version, a reggae version.
That wasn't part of the original.
That wasn't, but I was just thinking about that. I was like, that would be really rad because then you get the variety of it. That's the only thing you could ever hear.
Absolutely. Every time I would pick, I would love to be in Mexico.
Erick's going to find a way to make this a real thing now.
Caliente.
No. Awesome. Thanks again for being on the Weird and Strong podcast. We've known each other for a few years now, and we always have a great time talking. So it was a no-brainer to bring you on.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. And the thing that I talk with everybody about is what are the things that make Erick weird? What are the unconventional ways that you show up in the world? Things that normal people, quote unquote, would consider weird. Not that you necessarily consider weird.
I think what makes me unique is that I embrace being weird instead of hiding it like most people.
Yeah.
And I just think there's components of all of us that are super weird. But I get Legos for my birthday and I post it on Facebook and I'm almost 40. And I'm like, oh, I got my Thor set. Hooray. I'm very excited to be a goofy child.
Yeah.
And I think that we kind of as a society hide a lot of the things that make us unique, and we try to stick into a box. And I'm just like, that no, I'm just kind of gonzoing through life and
Hmm.
pretty okay with doing things different. And I
Yeah,
think that makes me unique.
definitely does. And that's actually a quality I've always, since I met you, that I've very much had admired, is that your ability to show up authentically as you,
Mhm.
like unashamed of it. That's it's a rare quality in the world. And is that something that you've always done, or is that something that you've come to embrace more and more as you've grown older?
Man, that's a great question. I will say, oh, I think it kind of like thanks mom and dad for being so supportive and so like okay with all the stuff I do. They would just like, oh, Eric, you're great at everything. And even if I wasn't, and it
Hmm.
gives you kind of some blind confidence to like to go into a lot of situations. And again, that just comes from trial, and then you get to middle school, right? And then you
Hmm.
get to some of those things, and I just there were times where I felt trapped
Hmm.
in like, oh, this is how you do stuff, and it was really constricting to me. And then you get to college, and no one gives a shit, and I'm like, oh, this is amazing.
Hmm.
I'm going to turn the volume up on this. And I just don't think I've really looked back since.
Yeah, that's really cool. How did that? What was the arc of that through college? Was it like easy to step into that right away, or did you find yourself trying to like, oh, I'm going to try to fit the box of the freshman college student. I'm going to try to do the things, or you were just break right through right away?
And again, I think it goes back to a little positive reinforcement, and it just you go, you run, I run with
Hmm.
that. And
Yeah.
so we me and we did the mistake, and it wasn't a mistake. I still love this guy. His best man in his wedding last year, so
Hmm.
it's fine. But we were best friends in high school, and we lived together in the dorms.
Hmm.
And a person on our floor walked by, and he just knocked on our door one day, and he's like, you guys, you have a really loud sound system, but I hear you're playing Super Mario 3, and I think we would be friends. And I'm like, you know what? That makes sense.
Come
Because
on
Mario
in.
3 is like, come on in. And again, that's freshman week when you're meeting new people. And then I'm like, yeah, this is all right. We're
Hmm.
just gonna turn the volume up on Mario 3 for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna find great forever friends doing that.
Oh yeah. Do you have like? Thank you for sharing all of that. And you know, if you've got somebody who is maybe struggling with embracing their inner weirdo,
Yeah.
embracing themselves, and letting that really shine through, whether it's
Mhm.
because they've locked them, if they feel like they've locked themselves into a corporate job where the tie on the suit's a little too tight, or they feel like they've put themselves into this role of a family person, or whatever that is. What sorts of advice could you give somebody who wants to be more authentically themselves?
I think it's okay. It's okay to get in those times where the tie is tight and it's constricted. I worked for a big conservative company, and it was like my first big job out of college, and I learned so much there.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned that wasn't me, and I made the decision to, and it's a scary decision, right? Like if I looking back at that now, I would have a ton of employee stock options. I'd be doing really well for like my future retirement kind of things. But
Yeah.
I've walking away from that, I've grown so much,
Mm-hmm.
and I've learned so much more about myself that I think that it's important to take a moment to kind of recognize that like, hey, I'm in this, and I feel like I need to break free and I need to be my authentic self and not be scared if it doesn't go great. Because then you'll still learn. I could go back to that, like, let's say me jumping out doing my thing didn't work. I did go back to that, to be honest. So this is actually the anniversary, 7 years ago today.
Oh, wow.
I took the down payment of my house that I was going to buy in Fargo, and I didn't know if I wanted to live in Fargo. So I resigned from my job and I drove all across America visiting everyone that I've ever known. And it was an amazing experience for me, and it was life-changing, and it was fantastic. I came back from that without a job, without anything, and I saw that old position had 2 openings, and I didn't know if I wanted to go back there. Or in fact, I knew that I didn't want to go back there, but at the same time, I just called up my old boss and I said, hey, I see you got a few openings for a job that I used to do. I'm still looking for a job. Can I just come back and I'm just going to work. I might have interviews. I might have to be a little flexible with my time, but I will bail you out of a situation where you just need a laborer that's going to be amazing. And so I worked there for, I don't know, probably a quarter.
Yeah.
And I ended up training in all of the new people. It was very weird because
you're like, I'm here temporarily. I came back. I'm the new guy.
I'm a temp guy who's, and they had 4 people in there when I left. And as the temp guy, I had more experience than all of them combined.
Yeah.
And so they would leave all of the disgusting projects that were like very difficult and say like, that's an Erick teaching project. And so then I'd come in on my 2 or 3 days a week and I'd teach everyone how to do one weird facet of things from my years of experience. And again, I wanted to go back there today. I could.
Yeah.
But I think you have to just trust yourself. And I get a little more intuitive as I'm older, and I just use my Jedi feelings and say like, this is pulling me towards something. I should probably just not fight it.
Search your feelings. You know it be true.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really solid. And that's an amazing arc. Like, I know we've been hearing stories like this more and more, like especially the past couple of years, but even so, the past 10 years of people doing these grand things, like driving around the country to just figure out who am I and what do I want? When we are very much stuck in the grind of our day to day, especially a job where we're not feeling like we are ourselves, or that we're able to show up as ourselves in an authentic and honest way, that these big trips or these life-changing decisions can truly be transformative. And you just you learn things that the grass isn't always greener. It was really, I left, and again, it was a negative 20-degree day. It was why the hell would anyone live in Fargo? I'm going to go find somewhere that feels like home to me, and that's where I'm going to build my home base. And I got to Los Angeles, the farthest probably geographic place in America away from Fargo. And I was like, oh my God, I miss Fargo. There's 8 lanes of traffic, and tacos always cost $30, and you have to pay to park, and you have like, it's this dreadful. I could never buy a house here. And I remember, also need like
$500,000. I remember crying my way out of LA, and it was like I'm halfway through this. I realized in Los Angeles, as far away as like, I want to be home, and that is my home. And now I have a blizzard day where it's dreadful outside, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. We're flying around the sun at 70,000 miles an hour. The tilt will come back to us in a good way soon. Los Angeles is what it is, but this is where my home is. And again, I wouldn't have had that perspective had I not done that trip.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, this is going to be, for people who love LA, great. And I had a great talk with back in my old gigging days at the Nestor here in Fargo. Those of you who are from the area, you'll remember that old dive bar. It was a terrible place which had an amazing music scene. I got to meet so many cool people, and through that, guitar player. He was originally from Brooklyn, and so he grew up in. They had winter, not necessarily to the extremes that we have, but they got rainy days and cold weather and warm days and hot days in the summer, all of those things. And being a musician, that's the thing you do is you move out to LA, to get into the industry, do these things. And we were talking something about that, and he's just like, "Yep, every single day." He's like, "I wake up and go, oh, it's a perfect 70 to 90 degree day in LA." He's like, what I would give for a rain cloud."
Mm-hmm.
He's like, it was he missed the contrast.
Mm-hmm.
When everything's a perfect sunny day, things tend to blur together. It's like if you walk into a room of pure white light, what can you see?
Yeah.
Or you walk into a perfect, pitch black room, what can you see? Our life lives in the contrast between those two things. It may go up, it may go down.
We got deep now.
Oh, yeah.
Life is in the contrast.
Yeah. And so having a journey or an adventure like you did, and being able to see the contrast of what does a perfect sunny day every single day look like? Not for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, let's back I like nice weather.
Well, yeah, we all do.
But I learned that I want to experience, and I don't need to live in an adventure spot.
Mm.
Like, I don't need to live on a mountain, because I will still just want to play Hogwarts Legacy on the weekends when it comes out, because I'm a nerd. And so you can always visit these places, and I'm always going to want to visit these places. But if you live at one of those places, it doesn't change. I would still want to travel, and I would still want to see that contrast.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't mean that I have to be surrounded by it, because it's still just let it pass me by, unless you're in the actual adventure mindset.
Totally. Speaking of that, let's talk about some travel. What's been the wildest trip you've ever taken?
Ooh.
Whether that's the how you got there, or maybe the destination. I know you've got some stories here.
I know, like the pickle one is gonna be tricky. I will say, so we'll do a little bit of backstory. My mother is a high school teacher, and she takes juniors and seniors every other year on a European tour. And we go there for like 3 weeks, and I'm old enough that I've got to chaperone this trip a couple times. Mm-hmm. And I remember there's an interesting different world when it comes to chaperoning and being responsible for people in an international kind of thing. And I'm not the teacher. I was just the tall landmark that people would kind of walk and watch. And we just had this kid that wasn't ready for international travel. And we were in Switzerland, and again, he was such a delightful nerd, and I'm going to do a mild impression of him. And it's not a mean impression. It's just him. And we go up this tram in Switzerland in the Alps. It's this beautiful, amazing thing on Mount Pilatus. And it was so cool. And we said, okay, we're going to be traveling after this. Make sure that you guys have your passports, you have your tickets, you have your stuff. And he had issues with stuff like every step of the way. And I remember he comes to us after the top of the train, or after we get off the train. And I think I have a theory of how I lost my passport. It's like, oh no. And
was this the first you'd heard that he had lost his passport?
Well, this was where he lost his. So he pulls out his pocket and there's a whole. I think I lost. It's like, here's the realisticness of the situation. There's no way a rolled up pass. You'd have to really try to get a passport through that hole. He just straight up lost it. But his theory was probably not just so. Yeah, his hypothesis wasn't the greatest. And this was on a Saturday, and we were going to France the next day.
Mm-hmm.
So none of the embassies were open till Monday. And so we smuggled this high school student into, okay, sit in the back of the bus and you're going to be in the corner and we're going to go through the thing and we're going to hope that there's a big enough bus that they don't check everyone.
Yep.
Pretend you're sleeping. And so, yeah, we smuggled a kid from Switzerland to France.
That's that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
But also, like, you know, I've been to Europe enough that, like, it's always a gamble anyways if they're even going to check.
Well, and again, it was such a weird thing too, where if they did check and he did get caught, he would be stuck in Switzerland for 2 days, and we would be countries away by the time he was able to get out.
Almost a whole continent away.
It was like, oh, we're gonna be very far away from Switzerland by Tuesday. We're taking a 1-day thing in France, and then we're moving on. Like, it was, that was a little bit of a stressful situation, but we got through it.
Yeah. Do you remember right that you drove a U-Haul through some blizzards to help somebody move once?
Yeah, that one was pretty fun too, and that was in like the middle of COVID.
Yeah,
I had a marketing coworker, and she did all of the stuff that I hate well, and so she edited videos and she kept things on task, and she was very organized. Like, I'm just a good idea tornado, and she was a good implementer. She couldn't come up with the ideas, but she was a very good implementer. And anyway, she said, I'm looking to move to North Carolina because my husband's in the military and he has a thing. And again, this was before remote work was really everywhere. And she said, do you think that I could work remote for you guys while I'm in North Carolina? And I said, so I'll drive the U-Haul. And a couple months later, she's like, were you serious about that? And I'm like, yes, can we do this? And then one of our other developers who is just delightful. It's Suman, and he's a software developer. He doesn't say words, and he's like, Eric, let's go. And so we drove through, and it was COVID. And so we thought we were going to go on this super fun road trip. We were going to stop in Madison, Wisconsin, and meet one of our remote coworkers that we'd never seen before. And we're going to go to Chicago and stop at the Bean and do Chicago things. And we're going to have pizza and all of this stuff. And then we were going to, I don't remember. There's a lot of cool things along the way from here to North Carolina, and it was COVID, so we couldn't do any of it. We got to Madison, and they're like, "Yeah, all the restaurants are closed, and I don't want to see you guys." And I'm like, "Well, that makes sense. We're gonna go into our hotel room and sit by ourselves." And then we got up the next day and we actually ended up driving around Chicago because in the middle of COVID, they actually put walls up around the Bean
to prevent people from coming in
so that people wouldn't gather. Yeah. So it was just this super weird, not touristy road trip. It was a very business road trip where we will drive to this place and we will watch Avatar, The Last Airbender on Netflix, and we will fly home. And we did the thing, and it was kind of funny too because we were flying home, and it was during the insurrection. Like, that was the day that were home. And so around noon, and we're in North Carolina, and like all the airports they might close. Like, there are people that are holding Congress hostage right now.
Wow.
I don't know if we'll get back to Fargo. And it ended up just fine, but that was a very real, interesting again, I have a lot of weird travel stories. And
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, we had our first little like coffee meetup right before you left.
Okay.
Because I remember you telling me, you're like, yep, I'm going to hit the road here in like 15 minutes. And I'm like, are you sure? Like, I'm pretty sure there's a blizzard happening right now.
Oh, I didn't even talk about driving through the blizzard. That was,
that was happening at the same time. You're like, I don't know. We're going to try. We're going to go and see how far we get.
Yeah.
U-Haul.
So we followed a blizzard to Madison, Wisconsin. We drove the whole. Oh yeah, that was a journey, and we made it. And then that's the important thing is you don't even remember the hardship. You just remember the
goofiness. Yeah,
the goofy funness of it.
Yeah, and like thinking about, we've been talking about all these adventures that you've been on, all these different types of things. You are embarking on a new adventure, are you not?
I am. I just this week am finalizing the awful bank paperwork, and it's not awful. There's a time and place for everything, but taking that adventure thought, and what I've done is I want to bring that sense of forever memories to other people, and so I'm building a remote office basically for 2 people. It's got 2 workstations and a couple beds, and it's an Airbnb on wheels that has satellite Wi-Fi. And yeah, I think I'm getting ahead of the game on this, and hopefully that this will be a rentable thing that people want to take part of. But if it's not, I can go back to my normal job, and I can just be a good employee for a very established business if need be. And so it's coming this summer where there's production and there's supply chain things and there's stuff, but I'm really excited to be taking this new big random leap. That's weird leap as well, because this isn't industry yet.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about that. Like, what was the thing that led you to this idea?
So about a year ago, it was honestly really similar to today.
Yeah.
I had come back from my big trip, and that was amazing, and that was life-changing, and it was so good. And I was sitting at my fancy new home office, and like I have a coffee bar and a standing desk and dual monitors and all of the things, right?
You can go play with your Legos anytime you want.
Anytime I want. There's Legos readily available. And I was looking outside, and it was a blizzard. And I said, I can work anywhere. Mm-hmm. I chose to build my office 5 miles from my office. That's stupid. They're like, that's not the best. I should go visit my peeps again. Mm-hmm. But I shouldn't resign from my job this time, because I don't have to, because we can work remote. And so then I started digging into van life and what it would take to set up I wanted to make something that was incredibly comfortable, that would last a long time, that it's not just an awful, like a bad setup. I wanted something that I could actually work at and actually sleep in, and it would be a nice thing to drive that wouldn't break down. And those components cost as much as my house, it turns out.
Yeah.
So then I was like, oh, this great idea is like, it's still a pretty solid idea, but I am not at the spot where I can afford another mortgage just by myself. Mm-hmm. How am I going to pay for this thing? Because it's too good of an idea not to do. And I should rent this to Suman, the person who went on the road trip with me before, and we the exact person. And then I work for a software engineering company, and a lot of the people that work remote and like working remote were they're like, oh, this is a really good idea, Eric. This is something that I'd be interested in doing. Mm-hmm. And so that was, again, a little positive reinforcement. Like, let's just figure it out. And so a year later, I did a lot of work and a lot of components to get it going. And we're launching this summer, and I'm hoping that, you know, all of the software engineers that I talk to on a daily basis that said that it was a good idea. Like there's a difference between, oh, I like that, and like, here's $1.
Yeah, here's my money. Take it.
Here's $1. I hope that like, well, I'm a little nervous that there's a difference between good idea and here's $1. But again, I if you just do some planning and some calculations and something like, let's say this just doesn't work at all.
Mm-hmm.
The supply chain for Sprinter vans that are camper, like I could probably conservatively come away with 80% of my investment.
Mm-hmm.
And then I spent $50,000 trying to not have a boss.
Mm-hmm.
And over a career, I think that's something I can recover from, and that's something that I would much rather try and fail at than just sit and be like, "Oh man, it's a blizzard today. Wouldn't it be a great day to drive away?" Yes, yes. 2 days ago would have been a fantastic time to say, "Blizzard's coming.
Let's go."
I'm not dealing. Like,
load it up. Let's go. Yeah.
Let's get out of here. Let's not deal with airports. Let's put my golf bay or my golf clubs in a thing and not have to pay a plane ticket for a golf club. I'm going to bring a Costco bottle of shampoo because I can.
Yeah.
And like, I'm not going to deal with like, oh, we've canceled your flight for no reason other than we're understaffed and you can go. Like, I'm done dealing with that. We have too much freedom and you should take advantage of it.
Yeah. It's a super rad idea.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm excited to see it all come through into reality because I know we'd met, I believe it was about a year ago. We met for coffee again. And you're like, I got this thing. And I was like, oh. I was getting deep into my transformative journey over the past year with words and mindset. I'm like, well, I got a thing I want to tell you about too. And so we were very excited about our own things, and that was a super cool. I was like, oh, that is a really great idea.
And that kind of goes back to being weird, right? Like we're weird together.
Oh yeah.
And,
I mean, we were before we were rolling, folks. We were talking about pirates.
Yeah.
Being pirates. Not just like we like pirates. No, like that's part of the identity for these two weirdos talking to you.
Yeah. No, and I think going back to the weirdness, and even we talked about I was traveling during the insurrection. Like the worst idea has 1,000 people that agree with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like someone said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to go storm the Capitol. And then what are we going to do once we storm it? Like, whatever.
We'll figure it out.
There's thousands of people that were on board with that and bought plane tickets and bought this. Like there's the world is so much smaller than it used to be. Mm-hmm. And you can find your unique people that, and again, it's fun for me as well. It's like, oh, we had a coffee a year ago. And I'm getting into this mindset thing. And I'm like, okay.
Sounds weird. Tell me more.
So this is interesting. And to see, and again, I think the weirdness in us is we had this ideas that we were kind of spitballing at coffee. Mm-hmm. And a year later, like we're waist deep in both. Yeah. Like, there's weirdness in actually doing things. And I think that's an important thing to take away is like, you should do the stuff that makes you unique.
Take the shit out of it. Do the stuff that makes you unique.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an area like we talk. It's been so cool. Like, getting out there in the world into these various communities, like, cause we met through a networking group and likely that we've crossed paths in the small town of Fargo, North Dakota many times is likely. And also getting this connection to where we're talking today, that takes so many like chances to come into alignment perfectly. And also like, there are so many cool people in the world and all I got to do is get out there, Put yourself out there. And you never know what's going to happen. You never know what ideas, what things will come of it. Putting yourself out there. Be the man in the arena.
And it is beyond scary to do that. And I am not going to pretend that I'm not terrified right now. But I will grow from this. I grew into a better person going through middle school, and I didn't want to go to that.
Yeah.
You couldn't pay me enough money to go back to 7th through 9th grade, but I grew and I learned a lot, and I've changed as a person then, and that happens from taking a scary step.
Mm-hmm. That plays perfectly into my next question of what are your strengths that you bring into the world? If your friends were here to say, like, what makes Erick strong?
Ooh. I think it's an interesting thing because I have a very strong stance against the phrase soft skills.
Yeah.
Because they're so effing hard.
And also so crucial to many, many professions and just being a human being.
No one leaves a job because their boss has great hard skills that they just want to continue being around.
What are hard skills anyway?
That's a whole other. I don't know about that, but anyway, yeah, I would say I am a pretty good communicator, and I think that I can build relationships with people relatively quickly, and I can befriend a lot of people anywhere. And I think that means I should be an ambassador, and I should go travel, and I should meet more people. And oh man, other things that I'm strong in. I think I'm funnier than most people. Like, that's weird to say, but like if I meet someone who's like a lot funnier than me, like my cheeks are gonna hurt because it's just a great night.
Yeah.
And again, that boils into soft skills. That boils into, again, the hard soft skills. And I have a pretty positive outlook on stuff. And I look at things like from a really big picture perspective where, yes, school is canceled, roads are closed, all the things are happening today, right? Mm-hmm. There's heaters. Yeah. 200 years ago, we could probably die from today. And I don't have to, I am talking to you through a computer that goes to outer space, and we're having like that's Jetson stuff that people couldn't dream of.
Yeah, we're like 2 miles away from each other.
It doesn't,
if even that.
It doesn't make sense. And we live in this time that's more free, and it's the best time to be a human. Mm-hmm. And I don't think people take that perspective.
Yeah. I'm taking this. Sorry to interrupt. I'm taking this course on ancestral stories. Mm-hmm. So getting deep into the mindset work, but with your family.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this a little bit. So my family from Western North Dakota, and I was remembering back to a time, must have been like 5th or 6th grade for me. Mm-hmm. Some of my cousins from Texas had come up to visit, and we were up at Lake Skakawea, and on the drive back, my parents decided that they wanted to stop at this old homestead. It wasn't where our family lived, but our family lived in a very similar, like both sides of my family, in a very similar place at one point in time. And it was the old sod houses.
Oh.
I was like, people in my family literally they actually lived in houses made out of dirt and grass. And it wasn't even that long. It was about 100 years ago.
Yeah.
But it's even that, no electricity. Middle of the winter, you had to go out to a hole in the ground to use the bathroom and hope you didn't freeze to death.
You had to dig your own hole. Like, oh man, I would like to take a shit today. Like, here's a shovel.
Yep.
Figure it out. Like, oh, that just,
there's no real trees out there. So they're like burning cow patties for their furnace. And I was like, you know what? Things are pretty great right now.
There's nothing in my life that's a real problem.
Yeah. Yeah. You're like, all right, what food have we saved in our grass and mud house when it's negative 40 degrees outside?
Yeah.
And there's no grocery store to be found for like 100 miles. What happens when we run out? I guess we eat one of the kids. I don't know.
Again, we have it so easy. Not easy. You go into like the Maslow hierarchy. Like there are absolute challenges with every generation of human being that we have to overcome, and they're different challenges.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as the very basic levels of stuff, we have it very, very well. And I think that we should really focus on taking advantage of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Being grateful for it. Yeah. Rad, man.
Yeah.
Where can people find out more about this amazing venture that you're creating?
Yeah, my company is called Road America, and it's actually Road America Industries, LLC. And the story behind that was I was in the lawyer's office making it, and I had just watched an episode of Seinfeld where Kramer has an interns, and he made Kramerica Industries. And I didn't have a name. And I'm like, Road America. And that kind of I'm like, all right.
Yeah, let's go with it.
Road America. And so, yeah, I've built a social foundation. And so you can check us out on Facebook, LinkedIn, Insta, all the things. And then,
RODE America.
Yeah, sorry. It's a combination of my last name and America. And so yes, I have to buy the domain name for ROAD. Mm-hmm. And then just point it to RODEMERICA.com. And again, I'm working with software engineers, and I love them as my buddies. And so we've got a pretty skeleton of a site right now. But I don't know when this airs, we will have the ability to book trips and to contact us, and all of the API pulls from the scheduling software that'll be working so that we can do all the things. But again, reach out to Jeremy, reach out to me on any social, and I'd just love to have a coffee too, because I just love weirdos.
Yeah, we'll have links in the show notes for everything. Any final thoughts?
I just thank you. Outside of this podcast, I think it's a good platform to bring people together that have unique ideas, and you've just been a really good influence in my life. And so I'm glad that I know you, and I'm glad that we can have these conversations pretty regularly. So yeah, just thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We'll close that out. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. Keep being weird, folks.